So mom and dad migrated from South India about, I'm going to say 45, 50 years ago. I have an older sister. She was born in South India, and they transplanted over when she was like 4 or 5. Mom was a nurse, and at the time, I want to say in the 50s or 60s, there was a huge shortage of nurses, and that led to New York City recruiting a lot of nurses from overseas. Very similar to what's going on now. We have a huge shortage of nurses, looking for some awesome ones. So mom comes over, I'd say 5 years later, I end up being born. Big age gap between me and my sister, but spend most of my, childhood, 0 to 18, in New York.
Or about New York?
Yeah, I grew up in Queens, small town called Belrose.
Yeah.
Elementary school, junior high, high school. Sometimes toward the end of high school, I started leaning towards getting into healthcare. I think watching mom do it, I also had a good buddy of mine who was really driven in there. So he kind of took me under his wing, told me to try getting into med school with him. So we went back to med school in Europe because we got into this direct med program. We live out in Eastern Europe for 3 or 4 years, wild experience. I recommend everyone living abroad for a little while just to see what the world is like.
You have a good time?
Good time. It was stressful, man. It was stressful. So our med school was set up. It's kind of wild in Europe, Kev. You have the first year 1 of med school, you have like 120 kids. By year 4, there was only maybe 40 of us. Everyone else had flunked out. So what happens is, a European med school, you're taught by MDs/PhDs. Now these guys take education really seriously, but it's all based around your final exam. So if you pass your final exam, you move on. Your final exam is a written test along with an oral examination. So you have this professor just grilling you for 30 minutes. And it is scary, okay? Because these guys, if they don't like the way your tie is on that day, they can just tell you to leave, which means that you would have to repeat a whole year. Yeah, so it was a wild experience. What can I tell you? You definitely learn what you can handle, builds a little bit of grit, thick skin, force you to grow up quick. You're out there in the middle of nowhere, don't speak the language that great, you got to pick up a new language, so that kind of stuff I would tell you, but going back, I wouldn't change anything. It's all the right thing.